The cavern was cold and dark, the kind of place where even the bravest creatures felt fear. Shadows clung to the jagged walls, and the faint drip of water echoed through the empty tunnels. A small figure huddled in the corner, trembling so badly that it was a wonder he could even speak. His scales were pale and weak, unlike the strong shiny scales of the dragons who ruled the skies of this planet. The little dragon boy, Lyric, tried to steady his breathing. Every sound seemed too loud. Every shadow seemed alive. "Please, please save my brother," he whispered, his voice trembling like the wind through the cavern. He pressed himself closer to the cold rock floor, hoping someone, anyone, would hear him. The words left his lips with a mix of fear and desperation. His brother, stronger and braver than he was, lay injured deeper in the tunnels. Lyric had found him after the mercenary attack, but alone he could do nothing. He had seen humans before in the distance, strange creatures who could think and act in ways dragons could not. He remembered stories his mother had told him of a human medic, a retired one who had once helped dragons survive impossible injuries. Maybe, just maybe, that human could help now. The faint rustle of movement outside the cavern caught his attention, and his heart jumped. He flattened himself against the wall, hoping it was not a predator. But it was only the wind whispering through the jagged rocks. Lyric took a deep breath and tried to focus. He could not fail. His brother's life depended on it. His small claws scraped against the stone as he crawled further into the darkness, his weak wings dragging behind him. He reached the side of his brother, who lay barely conscious. His scales were dull, and shallow breaths marked the severity of his injuries. Lyric's eyes filled with tears. He had never felt so helpless in his life. Somewhere far from this dark place, in a small human settlement, Kale, a retired human medic, sat quietly in his home. He had left behind the chaos of his past, choosing a life of peace and routine. His days were spent in quiet reflection, tending a small garden and reading old reports of the galaxy he had once served. But even in his calm life, he had learned that stories had a way of finding their way to the right person. Today, a message had arrived, a crude transmission from the dragon scouts who occasionally patrolled the nearby mountains. They spoke of a small, weak dragon pleading for help for his injured brother. The description matched the dragon families Kale had once treated decades ago. A spark of recognition and concern lit in his eyes. Kale rose from his chair, feeling the familiar pull of responsibility that he thought he had left behind. He gathered his old medical supplies, carefully checking each piece. Bandages, healing compounds, and even a small field scanner, all packed into his worn leather satchel. The trek would be dangerous. The caverns were known for sudden collapses and lurking predators. But Kale had faced impossible situations before. He knew the risks, and he knew he could not ignore a creature in need. With determination, he left his home, stepping into the cold, dim light of early dusk. Meanwhile, Lyric pressed closer to his brother, trying to shield him from the cavern's chill. His tiny body shook, but he whispered to his brother, telling him to stay awake, to hold on. He wished he could fly to carry him away to safety, but his wings were too weak, and the path to the exit was treacherous. Every shadow seemed to hide danger, every sound made his heart leap. He had never felt so small, so powerless, and yet he refused to give up. Even in fear, he held on to hope. Kale climbed the rocky terrain with careful steps. He knew the path would not be easy, and the canyon's narrow ledges and sharp stones demanded full attention. The sun dipped lower behind the distant cliffs, casting long, dangerous shadows across his path. He moved quietly as if the wind itself would betray him. As he neared the entrance of the cavern system, he paused to observe the surroundings. The rocks were jagged, dangerous, and the faint smell of scorched earth reminded him of previous battles. Still he pressed forward. Compassion outweighed caution. Inside the cavern, Lyric heard the faintest sound, something different from the usual dripping water or the distant echoes. It was soft, steady, deliberate. A footstep? No, it was too rhythmic, too confident. Lyric's heart skipped a beat. Could it be the human? He hoped so. With trembling claws, he crawled to the edge of the shadows, peering through the darkness. He could just make out a figure moving cautiously, scanning the surroundings. A human, tall and careful, with a bag slung over his shoulder. Lyric's voice caught in his throat as he whispered again, "Please, save him." Kale's keen eyes caught the faint glimmer of scales in the shadows. He crouched low, moving silently. Years of experience had taught him how to approach creatures who were scared, how to earn their trust without sudden moves. "I am here to help," he said softly, his voice calm and steady. Lyric froze, unsure if he should believe him. But there was something in the tone, something that made his heart beat faster with hope. He stepped forward slightly, revealing his small form, and nodded toward his brother. Kale's eyes widened as he saw the injured dragon. Even in his years of service, he rarely encountered injuries this severe. He knelt beside the larger dragon, gently assessing the wounds. Lyric's trembling continued, but he stayed close, watching every careful movement. Kale's hands were steady and his voice remained soft. "We are going to get him out of here," he promised. Lyric's small heart leaped with hope, though fear still clung to the edges. Outside, the wind whistled through the cavern mouth, carrying the sound of distant danger. Predators could smell weakness. Rocks could shift and trap them. But inside, in the dim light and shadow, a fragile bond formed. The small dragon boy had whispered a plea in the dark, and a retired human medic had heard it. And that bond, delicate and tentative, would be the first step toward something incredible. Kale rose, gently signaling Lyric to stay close. "We must move quickly," he said. Lyric nodded, struggling to hold back tears of fear and relief. He could not yet see how they would survive the journey, but he knew they were not alone anymore. Hope, fragile and flickering, had returned to the cavern, lighting the darkness in a way that no sunbeam could. And with that first step toward the unknown, the adventure, and the unbelievable, was about to begin. Kale moved carefully through the cavern, his eyes adjusting to the dim light. The walls were jagged and the floor uneven, but he had learned long ago how to move quietly in dangerous places. He kept his bag close, knowing it held everything he might need. Every step he took sent small stones tumbling down the tunnels. The sound made Lyric freeze, pressed against a rock, unsure if the human had noticed him. "Who's there?" Lyric whispered, his voice small and shaky. "I'm here to help," Kale replied calmly. He crouched low, showing he was not a threat. His hands were empty, open. "I heard your call. I want to help your brother." Lyric hesitated. He had never trusted humans. They were strange, powerful, and often dangerous. But something in the tone of Kale's voice made him believe. Slowly, he stepped out from the shadow, revealing his small, pale body. His wings were too weak to lift him, and he shuffled forward, trying not to trip. "Please, he is hurt, my brother," Lyric whispered, pointing toward the deeper part of the cavern. Kale followed, careful with each step. As they moved deeper, he could see the larger dragon lying on the ground. The creature's scales were dull and dirty, and its breathing was shallow. Cuts and bruises marred its body. Kale knelt beside the injured dragon, examining the wounds with a practiced eye. "He's in bad shape," Kale said softly, "but he can be saved. We need to stabilize him first." Lyric shivered, his small claws gripping the rock. I don't know if he can. "I can't do anything," he admitted, his voice breaking. Kale reached out, gently resting a hand on the young dragon's head. "You've done the right thing. You found me. That takes courage, Lyric. I need you to stay close, help me as much as you can. Your presence will help him more than you know." Lyric nodded, feeling a strange warmth in his chest. The human was not like the mercenaries or the hunters he had seen. This human was different. Calm, strong, kind. Kale opened his bag and took out some basic tools. Bandages, healing compounds, and a small field scanner. These were all he had. But Kale had worked with dragons for many years and he knew how to improvise. He started cleaning the wounds, carefully removing dirt and debris, using his compounds to slow the bleeding. The injured dragon stirred slightly, and Kale spoke softly to reassure it. "You're safe now. Stay still. We are going to help you." Lyric stayed close, watching every move. He wanted to help but was afraid of making things worse. Kale noticed the tension in the little dragon and spoke to him gently. "Hold his claw for me," he instructed. "Just hold it. That's enough right now." Lyric did as he was told, his small claws gripping his brother's larger claw. He felt a strange connection, as if by holding him he was sharing some of his courage and strength. The cavern was silent except for the occasional drip of water and the sound of Kale's careful movements. Outside, the wind rattled loose stones, reminding them of the danger just beyond the walls. Kale worked quickly but carefully, aware that they might not have much time. The larger dragon's breathing was weak, and if they did not act soon, the injuries could become fatal. Lyric whispered questions constantly, his small voice filled with worry. "Will he wake? Will he hurt? Can we leave this place?" Kale answered each one patiently, explaining in simple words what he was doing. "He will wake," he said. "He will not hurt too much. And yes, we will get him out. But you must stay calm and help me when I ask." Hours seemed to pass as Kale worked. The injured dragon began to respond, opening its eyes slightly, then closing them again. Lyric's heart leaped each time he saw movement. He had never seen someone care for dragons like this. He realized that humans, even retired ones, could be more than he had imagined. They could act when others ran, use their minds and hands to save lives. Kale finally finished stabilizing the worst wounds, wrapping them carefully and applying the healing compounds. He stood and looked at Lyric. "We need to move him," he said. "He is stable enough to travel, but the cave is not safe. We must take him to a secure place." Lyric's eyes widened. Moving his brother through the dark cavern sounded impossible. His weak wings could not carry him, and the tunnels were narrow and dangerous. I can try," he said softly. "I will help you." Kale smiled faintly, seeing the courage in the small dragon. "We will do this together. You do not have to be strong to help. Sometimes being brave is enough." With careful planning, Kale lifted the injured dragon slightly, using a cloth sling to support him. Lyric crawled beside them, using his claws to steady his brother and guide the way. The tunnels were treacherous. Loose stones fell, and the walls seemed ready to collapse at any moment. Yet, with Kale leading and Lyric supporting, they moved slowly but steadily toward the cavern's exit. A distant roar echoed through the tunnels, making Lyric freeze. Kale's eyes narrowed. "Stay calm," he whispered. "We are faster than they are. Keep moving." Lyric nodded, gripping his brother's claw even tighter. The roar faded, replaced by silence and the echo of their own footsteps. As they neared the light at the cavern's mouth, Lyric felt hope rising in his chest. The outside world, dangerous as it was, now seemed reachable. The human beside him had not only saved his brother but also given him a courage he had never known. He realized that even a small, weak dragon could make a difference by asking for help, and even a retired human could perform incredible acts when guided by compassion. Kale paused at the edge of the light, looking back at the cavern. "We are almost there," he said. Lyric crawled closer to his brother, whispering softly to calm him. The injured dragon stirred, sensing the hope and care around him. Together, the human and the two dragons stepped into the open, leaving the dark cavern behind. A new journey was beginning, one that would test their courage, their trust, and the bond between species. Lyric glanced at Kale, a small smile breaking through his fear. He whispered, "Thank you, for coming." Kale nodded, his eyes calm and steady. "We are not done yet," he said. "But we will succeed. I promise." And with that, the first step toward survival and the unbelievable had been taken. Kale stepped carefully onto the rocky path outside the cavern, carrying the injured dragon in his arms. The light of the twin suns barely reached this part of the mountain, casting long shadows across jagged rocks. Lyric followed close behind, his small wings trembling with each step. The journey ahead was dangerous, but there was no other choice. The cavern was too unstable and predators roamed freely. They had to reach a safe place. "Hold tight, Lyric," Kale said, his voice calm and steady. "We must move carefully, but we cannot stop." Lyric nodded, gripping his brother's claw tightly. His small body shook, not from fear alone but from the effort of keeping up. The injured dragon let out a soft groan, and Kale adjusted his hold. "He's stable, but we must go faster," he whispered. Every second counted. The longer they stayed in this exposed path, the higher the risk of collapse or attack. The mountain path was treacherous. Loose stones slid underfoot and sharp rocks threatened to tear their clothes and wings. Kale had to pause often to find stable footing. He looked around constantly, his eyes scanning the shadows. Years of experience taught him to expect danger at every step. At one point, a sudden rumble echoed from above. A small landslide had begun. Kale shouted, "Move!" and guided Lyric to the side just in time as rocks crashed down where they had been moments before. Lyric's heart pounded. His weak wings could not lift him, but he ran as best as he could, crawling over loose stones and jagged edges. I'm trying," he cried, his voice strained. Kale glanced back and smiled faintly. "You're doing fine. Keep moving. We're almost past this section." As they descended further, the landscape began to change. The jagged rocks gave way to a narrow canyon, with steep walls rising on either side. A thin stream of water trickled along the bottom, reflecting the dim light. Kale's sharp eyes noticed movement along the walls. Shadows shifted unnaturally and he tensed. Predators were near. Lyric noticed Kale stop suddenly. "What is it?" he whispered. "Stay close," Kale replied. "There are creatures here that might see us as prey. We must be very quiet." They moved slowly, every step measured. Lyric's heart raced as he heard soft growls echoing through the canyon. The predators were large alien creatures with sharp teeth and glowing eyes. Kale positioned himself between them and the path ahead. Do not make a sound, he whispered. Follow my lead. With careful steps, Kale guided them past the predators. Lyric held his breath, gripping his brother's claw so tightly it hurt. The creatures sniffed the air and growled, but Kale's steady movements and calm presence kept them unnoticed. Once they were out of range, he allowed himself a quiet sigh of relief. Lyric let out the tension in a trembling breath, tears running down his small face. The canyon opened into a wide plateau, bathed in the pale light of the suns. The air was thinner here but safer. Kale placed the injured dragon on the ground carefully, checking the bandages and compounds he had applied. He's doing well, Kale said. But we must rest briefly. The journey is not over. Lyric knelt beside his brother, gently brushing a wing over him. Will he be okay? He asked, his voice small and anxious. He will, Kale said firmly. We are human and dragon together. We can handle this. You are helping more than you know. They rested only a short while, for Kale knew that danger could return at any moment. Soon they continued, moving toward the distant forest that marked a safer zone. The path was less rocky but still challenging. Lyric struggled with exhaustion, but Kale encouraged him at every step. One step at a time, Kale said. You are stronger than you think. As they walked, Lyric began to notice things he had never seen before. The way Kale moved with careful precision, checking every step and clearing small obstacles. The way he spoke to the injured dragon, soft and patient, as if he understood every creature's pain. Lyric felt a warmth in his chest, a feeling that humans could be more than he had ever imagined. Suddenly the wind shifted, carrying a faint, unpleasant smell. Kale's eyes narrowed. Storm coming, he said. We must find shelter soon. The plateau offered little protection, and the injured dragon could not fly or move quickly. Kale scanned the area and spotted a small overhang in the rocks, barely large enough to shield them from the coming storm. He hurried forward, lifting the dragon carefully. Lyric followed, crawling as fast as he could. The first drops of acid-like rain began to fall, sizzling when they hit the rocky ground. Under the overhang, Kale set the injured dragon down and worked quickly to shield him from the rain. Lyric stayed close, using his weak wings to cover parts of his brother. Kale worked silently, improvising barriers with pieces of rock and old cloth from his bag. The storm raged outside, but inside their small shelter the injured dragon was safe. Lyric looked at Kale, awe in his wide eyes. You really saved him, he whispered. Kale shook his head. No, we saved him together. You found me and you stayed brave. That counts for more than you think. For the first time in days, Lyric felt hope. The journey had been long and dangerous, but they had survived. He realized that even a small, weak dragon could help make a difference when guided by courage and trust. And he understood that humans, even ones who had retired from their lives, could perform extraordinary acts when faced with need. As the storm continued outside, Lyric settled beside his brother, watching Kale move quietly to prepare a small area where they could rest safely. The night was long, but for the first time, Lyric did not feel alone. They had survived the treacherous journey so far, and with Kale's help, they would survive what came next. The path to safety was not yet over, but the bond between human and dragon had been formed. Lyric's small voice broke the silence. Thank you, for not leaving us. Kale smiled faintly. We're not done yet, but we are on the right path. Together we can face whatever comes next. And so, under the dim light of the stormy plateau, the journey continued, filled with hope, courage, and the promise that even the weakest could inspire the unbelievable. Kale worked quickly but carefully, under the dim glow of a small lantern he had set up near the edge of the plateau. The storm had passed, leaving a chill in the air, and the injured dragon lay on a bed of soft cloth and rocks. Lyric stayed close, his small wings trembling as he watched the human prepare for what he called treatment. Lyric had never seen anyone care for dragons in such a careful, detailed way. Every movement Kale made was precise, calm, and deliberate. We need to clean the wounds properly, Kale said softly, removing dried blood and debris with gentle hands. It will hurt a little, but it is necessary. Lyric winced and wanted to cover his brother, but Kale shook his head. You will help by staying calm. That will make him feel safer. Lyric nodded and whispered, I will try. His small body pressed against his brother, offering warmth and comfort. Kale noticed and smiled faintly. Good. That's more important than you think. Kale mixed a healing compound from the powders and liquids in his bag. He had learned long ago that dragon physiology was complex, but not impossible to treat. This dragon's injuries were serious, deep gashes and bruises, some broken scales, but Kale's experience allowed him to improvise. He applied the compounds carefully, using strips of cloth as bandages to hold them in place. The injured dragon groaned softly but did not resist, sensing the calm authority of Kale and the comforting presence of Lyric. Lyric watched every move, fascinated by how the human worked. "How do you know what to do?" he whispered. Kale looked at him and said, "I've seen many dragons hurt. Every species has a pattern. You learn to listen to the body, watch closely, and never give up. Even if you are retired, knowledge never leaves you." The hours passed slowly, filled with careful movements and quiet reassurance. Kale worked tirelessly, checking each wound, cleaning, applying compounds, and adjusting bandages. Lyric stayed close, whispering softly to his brother to keep him calm. "It's okay," Lyric said. "We are here. You will be fine." Kale paused for a moment to observe the dragon's breathing. It was steadier than before, and color slowly returned to the dull scales. "He is responding," Kale said softly. "But we are not finished yet. There are still internal injuries we need to watch for." Lyric tilted his head, confused. "Internal?" Kale nodded. "Some injuries you cannot see. But I can feel them. We have to be patient. We cannot rush healing." Lyric pressed closer, realizing that patience and care were just as important as strength. Kale pulled out a small field scanner from his bag, a device he had carried from his days as a medic. He hovered it over the dragon, checking for fractures and internal damage. The machine beeped softly, giving him the information he needed. He adjusted the bandages, applied more compounds, and finally, spoke words that made Lyric's heart lift. "He will live. His brother will survive." Lyric could hardly believe it. After days of fear, after seeing his brother so weak, the words felt like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. "You really saved him?" he whispered, tears forming in his small eyes. Kale shook his head. "We saved him together. You found me, you stayed brave, and you stayed with him. That matters as much as anything I did." Lyric reached out and touched Kale's hand with his small claw. "Thank you, for everything." Kale smiled faintly. "The thanks will come later. For now, we need to keep watching him. Healing takes time. And you, Lyric, need to rest too. You cannot help if you are exhausted." The night passed slowly. Kale monitored the dragon's breathing, adjusted bandages, and applied healing compounds at regular intervals. Lyric stayed close, curling against his brother for warmth and reassurance. He learned quickly, copying Kale's careful movements, how to adjust a cloth without causing pain, how to speak softly to calm a creature in distress. He felt useful, strong in a way he had never known before. By morning, the injured dragon's breathing was steady, and the dull scales were slowly regaining color. Lyric could hardly hide his excitement. He is awake," he whispered. The dragon's eyes opened slowly, blinking at the light and the faces around him. He groaned, weak but alive. Kale knelt beside him. "You are safe," he said softly. "Rest now. You are strong, but even strong dragons need care." The injured dragon lifted his head slightly, nuzzling Lyric with a soft rumble of gratitude. Lyric felt a warmth he could not describe, a bond stronger than fear or weakness. Kale stood and stretched his aching arms. "We did it," he said quietly. "It was not easy, but you showed courage, Lyric. Courage matters more than size or strength. Never forget that." Lyric nodded, his eyes shining. He realized that humans were not only clever and resourceful but also capable of kindness beyond what dragons could imagine. Kale's actions were unbelievable, not because they were impossible, but because they were done with such care, patience, and love for another species. The dragon slowly rose to his feet, testing his strength. Lyric's brother looked at him, a weak smile spreading across his face. "Thank you," he rumbled, his voice low but filled with gratitude. Lyric pressed close, feeling relief wash over him. Kale adjusted his bag and looked at both dragons. "We will need to move them to a safer place soon," he said. "But for now, rest. Recovery is just as important as survival." Lyric curled beside his brother, finally allowing himself to relax. He had witnessed something incredible, how a human could perform the unbelievable, saving lives with courage, patience, and knowledge. He understood, finally, that bravery did not always mean fighting. Sometimes, it meant staying calm, thinking clearly, and helping those who could not help themselves. As the sun rose higher in the sky, Kale, Lyric, and the recovering dragon sat together in quiet. The journey had been hard, but the bond between human and dragon had grown strong. Lyric understood that no matter what dangers lay ahead, they were not alone. With courage, hope, and the unbelievable actions of one human, they could face whatever came next. And in that small, quiet moment, Lyric realized that even the weakest dragon could inspire strength, and even a retired human could perform miracles when guided by compassion. The morning sun painted the plateau with soft gold light. The injured dragon, now resting comfortably, stretched his wings slowly. Lyric curled beside him, his small body still trembling from the past days of fear and exhaustion, but a spark of hope had returned to his eyes. Kale watched them both with quiet satisfaction. His hands were tired, his back ached from carrying and treating, but the relief he felt was deeper than any exhaustion. The dragons were safe, alive, and slowly healing. Lyric looked up at Kale with a small, shaky smile. Will he be strong again?" he asked. Kale nodded, crouching beside him. "Yes, he will. And you will see. You stay brave, Lyric. That matters more than anything else. Even the strongest dragons owe their lives to courage like yours." Lyric's heart swelled. He had never imagined that his small, weak self could make a difference. But he had. He had asked for help, trusted someone he barely knew, and together they had saved his brother. For the first time he felt that humans and dragons could work together, not as enemies but as allies. The recovering dragon stirred and lifted his head. His eyes focused on Kale, and a low rumble of gratitude escaped him. "Thank you, a human," he said in the rough, deep voice of his kind. Lyric pressed closer to his brother, feeling the bond between them strengthen. Kale smiled faintly, shaking his head. "No thanks are needed. You both fought in your own way. You never gave up." News of Kale's act spread quickly. Word traveled through dragon scouts, across nearby settlements, and even reached distant planets. Stories of a retired human medic saving a dragon's life became a legend among dragons. They spoke of the human who had listened to a weak dragon boy's whispered plea and performed the impossible. Even creatures who had once feared humans began to see them in a new light. Lyric watched this change quietly. He had learned something important. Humans could be unbelievable not because of strength or weapons, but because of intelligence, compassion, and courage. He realized that the galaxy had underestimated them, judging only by appearance or size. One human could inspire hope, save lives, and even change the course of events for creatures far stronger than themselves. Kale prepared to leave the plateau. The injured dragon could now move slowly, and Lyric's small wings were stronger than before. The human had taught them care, patience, and hope. "It's time to return to safety," Kale said. "But remember, you are capable of more than you know. Bravery comes in many forms." Lyric flapped his wings experimentally, testing the strength he had gained. I can help my brother now," he said softly. Kale nodded. "Good. And remember, you don't have to face danger alone. Trust, courage, and teamwork are stronger than any weapon." As they descended toward the safer valley, other dragons watched from a distance. They whispered among themselves, amazed at the tale of the human who risked everything for them. Some had doubted humans for centuries, seeing them as fragile and weak. But now, they saw that one human could act in ways that dragons themselves might never manage. Courage was not measured by size or firepower, it was measured by the heart. Lyric's brother lifted his head higher, testing his wings. "I will never forget this human," he rumbled. Lyric nodded, feeling a warmth he had never known. Together they followed Kale toward the valley, each step lighter than the last. The bond between human and dragons had been forged in hardship, strengthened by courage and sealed by compassion. Kale smiled quietly as he walked with them. He had thought retirement would mean peace and solitude. Instead, he had found purpose again in a way he had not expected. Saving a life, giving hope, and showing courage, it was the reason he had trained as a medic in the first place. And now he had reminded himself once more why humans were capable of the unbelievable. When they reached the valley, Lyric and his brother took their first cautious steps into the safety of the forest. The canopy provided protection from harsh winds, predators, and the heat of the suns. Kale adjusted their coverings and checked the healing compounds one last time. "Rest here," he said. "You are safe now. And remember, the world is bigger than fear. Bravery can make all the difference." Lyric looked up at Kale, tears in his small eyes. "Thank you, for everything. For not giving up on us." Kale shook his head. "You helped me just as much as I helped you. Never forget that. Courage, hope, and compassion, they are stronger than fear." The injured dragon nuzzled Kale, a silent thank you. Lyric pressed against his brother, feeling hope, pride, and love all at once. He realized the truth Kale had shown them. No matter how small or weak, asking for help, trusting others, and staying brave could lead to unbelievable things. As Kale turned to leave, he looked back at the two dragons, now safe and stronger than before. He knew the galaxy had learned something important that day. Humans were underestimated too often. They could think, act, and care in ways that were impossible to ignore. One person acting with courage and heart could change lives and inspire hope across species. Lyric and his brother watched the human fade into the distance, feeling a bond that would never break. "We will never forget him," Lyric said softly. "He showed us what humans can be." And in that quiet valley under the warm light of the twin suns, the story of the retired human medic who saved a dragon's life spread. The galaxy remembered that day, and dragons everywhere learned that even the smallest plea, when heard by the right heart, could bring about the unbelievable. Lyric whispered to his brother, "Humans, they are stronger than we thought. And sometimes even a retired one can be a hero." His brother rumbled in agreement, stretching his wings in the gentle sunlight. Together they took flight, feeling the strength of survival, the power of courage, and the wonder of a human who had changed their lives forever. And Kale, walking back toward his quiet life, knew that heroes were not always recognized. Sometimes the greatest victories were the ones that left no mark but saved lives, and reminded the galaxy that humans even in retirement were capable of the unbelievable.